Okay. This is my attempt at trying to get this to work. So what I'm going to do is, this is my project. I have it all right here, but it won't let me upload anything because I think the file size may be a little bit too big. So I'm just going to run through it, and hopefully I won't be docked too many points, or you'll still accept this. I'm not sure. So here's my project.
Hello, my name is Alexis, and today I'm going to be teaching you about timbre, and particularly focusing on string instruments and the violin of those string instruments. Timbre is caused by the fact that each note from a musical instrument is a complex tone and contains more than one frequency. It's a sound generated on any instrument and produces many modes of vibration occurring simultaneously. The vibration varies from slow rates to fast rates and kind of divides up the instrument groups. One of those groups is called the string family. It's more than just a piece of thread that you can tie around your finger, and it's a section of instruments that produce sound through vibrating strings. So you can pluck them, you can strum them, or you can bow them to make the strings vibrate. String instrument examples include the guitar, the harp, the violin, the bass, the cello, or the viola. Now, in an orchestra, you can have a harp, you can have a guitar, but typically there are 4 string instruments that are almost always included in live orchestral performances. Those 4 instruments are the violin, the viola, the cello, and the double bass. The violin has the highest pitch of the 4 instruments, and the double bass has the lowest pitch. They are in descending order, so the viola has the second highest pitch, and the cello has the second lowest pitch. In a large orchestra, this is from the audience's view, and as you could have seen in the previous video that was on this slide, the violins are generally on the left side of the conductor in the music stand. The first violins are typically to the front of the audience, and the second violins are typically directly right behind them. In the image on the slide, the 2 blue sections on the left, not the one in the middle in front of the conductor, but the 2 blue sections on the left, ending with the piano in the back, those two sections are the violin sections.
Please excuse my voice. I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold. I'm going to be doing the PowerPoint recordings tomorrow, so hopefully those will be a little bit clearer. For this project, I decided to do the violin. I have performed on this instrument for 6 years in my high school and middle school career. Absolutely loved it, and I was very excited to teach about it today. So, before we get started, I just wanted to say that this instrument is a fantastic, fantastic instrument, and I'm a little bit biased because, again, 6 years. Spent a long time with this little guy. So this wonderful instrument is the violin. It has a scroll here with pegs to tighten the strings, and this is the fingerboard, the bridge, the fine tuners, and then on here you attach this. This is your headrest. You attach this to the bottom like this. It goes on the back just like this. This goes between your head and your shoulder. This part you would hold, this is your chin rest right here. This part is what you would hold with your chin, and this part is what you would hold with your shoulder. So the second part of the violin is the bow. I mean, you can pluck to make the strings vibrate. That's a G string. You can pluck to make the strings vibrate, or you can bow them with this. So in the videos, you'll more than likely see them bowing rather than plucking, but there are pieces that do require plucking. In an ideal world, when I get out of nursing school, I would like to go back and continue learning on this instrument. I greatly enjoyed it in high school and would love to do a little bit more advanced work with this instrument, maybe as a hobby on the side or in a small ensemble or quartet. I'm not sure. I would consider the tone quality of this instrument as very varying. It just depends on how you play it. You can hear people scratching on it. You can hear people playing beautiful melodic tones. It depends on how you play it. It depends on the technique you use with your bow. It all depends. It can be harsh. It can be soft and beautiful. It just depends. And by harsh, I mean imagine car tires squeaking down the freeway. Similar to that, especially when people are just starting out and don't know how to weigh their bow and like push down on the strings. They don't really know how to do that quite yet. So, but there's also techniques in which you want to have kind of a harsh, squeaky sound. And then with this instrument, after more practice, you can eventually get to sounding beautiful and melodic and kind of, I don't want to say voice-like, because this instrument has a very, very high pitch in comparison to the rest of the orchestral string instruments. But I would say that this instrument varies. It just depends on how you play it.
Moving on to a brief history of the violin. The credit for the first original violin is typically given to a man named Andrea Amarti. Please forgive me for any pronunciation issues. I looked this up and that's the best I'm gonna do. He made his living building lutes, and a lute is a 15th century string instrument. It looks like a guitar, but it's a lot smaller. There's a hole in the middle, but it's also small like a violin. His first violin had only 3 strings, but then a wealthy Italian family, the Medici family, paid him to build the first 4-string violin. The violin was originally intended for professional street musicians, but soon it became an aristocratic favorite in northern Italy, and Italy is considered the violin's country of origin. Fast forward to a few centuries and a couple of significant historical events later. We're in 2007 now, and a man named Arturo Marquez composed Danzon No. 2. The video clips that I have inside of this PowerPoint are probably the most viewed of his piece. They're conducted by Gustavo Dudamel. He is a Venezuelan conductor and violinist, and it was most famously performed with the Simon Bolivar Symphony Orchestra in 2007, which I have listed inside of these video links down below. The first video link is the full orchestra, the ending of this piece. It's very strong, very powerful. You want to get up and go dance. And then the second video clip right below that is a solo violinist, the solo portion of this piece. And it's embedded at 4:28 in case the link doesn't work on the second one, and 8:48 in case the link doesn't work on the first one. So hopefully you enjoyed those two pieces of that song. Maybe you went back and listened to the whole thing. I don't know. It's a great piece. But typically in an orchestra, there are usually about 10 first violins and 10 second violins, and that's in a large orchestra, a good orchestra size. Violins are almost always featured in an orchestra and are one of the most recognized of the orchestral string instruments. Once again, they have the highest pitch of the four main string instruments. And outside of an orchestra, violins are also called fiddles. When performing folk music or creating improvisation is typically when somebody would fiddle. It's usually a solo player and can sometimes be seen performing music or creating improvisation is typically when somebody would fiddle. It's usually a solo player and can sometimes be seen performing on the street and breaking bow hairs. Typically you're playing more than one string at a time, whereas when you're playing a violin you usually play only one string at a time. Really the only difference between a violin and a fiddle is how one plays the instrument. Sometimes fiddlers use a flatter bridge to be able to bow more than one string at a time, but I've seen people fiddle on violins before and they do a fantastic job. One example of a fiddler, I guess, is in the link below. And this is an Irish.
If you write anything on your computer, you need to get Grammarly.
I write pretty much